All right, for Unit 4, we are discussing the American Revolution, how it begins, battles, as well as the effects of the American Revolution. Make sure to fill in the blanks or highlight your notes as we go through. The starting battles where we hear the phrase shot heard around the world comes with the Battle of Lexington and Concord, which is in Massachusetts. The colonists were prepared for battle by training what's called a Minuteman, and saying that they would be ready to fight at any minute. They were prepared with ammunition and guns at this time, so that way if there was any sort of issue between the British and the colonists, they were the ones that first stepped in. In April of 1775, British General Thomas Gage learned that the colonists were storing guns and ammunition in a town 20 miles northwest of Boston. And when he figured this out, he ordered 700 troops to destroy that storage area. On April 18th of 1775, British troops weren't actually noticed marching out of Boston to do this, and so they fought the Battle of Lexington and Concord, where 73 people died in the fight. 3 men that are famous for writing to communicate that people are, need to know that the British are coming to fight this battle are Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott. There are 2 basic sides when it comes to the colonists in the American Revolution. Patriots are the ones who supported this war. The American Revolution, according to these colonists, had a right to happen because they wanted to govern themselves and not be under the control of Britain. They wanted their American independence from the king. When this happens, you can see that the Patriots themselves have a home field advantage because the British troops have to come over from England and then fight. They don't know the area as well. People like Thomas Paine, who wrote Common Sense, are very strong patriots, people who support this war. The other side of this is a person called a loyalist. They sided with Britain and thought that this was unfair and didn't justify a war just because of the taxes or the laws that Parliament passed. The reason, though, that many of these people didn't oppose to the British control is because they were office holders. They were prominent members in society. So a lot of the times their paycheck came from Britain. Some of these people also didn't suffer from any of the British political changes. So even though the Stamp Act was passed, then they wouldn't be one who had to deal with it. They would be able to pay the normal price, not the tax price. Others thought that despite this war, it was kind of a waste of time because Britain would win no matter what. And they didn't want to be on that losing side. They wanted to support Britain because obviously Britain had more ammunition, more resources. When we look to the Second Continental Congress, the reason this happened is because the state or colony of Georgia actually showed up to this meeting on May 10th of 1775. And that Second Continental Congress met to begin governing the colonies themselves. This is where we see the Declaration of Independence eventually come from. Other historical members that we know of include John Adams, Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, George Washington, Ben Franklin, John Hancock, and Thomas Jefferson. They authorized for a printing of money. The post office set up forming a committee for relations with natives or foreign countries, and they created the First Continental Army. They offered Britain a last chance petition, which basically says we don't want to have this war, but we want to have our own rules. The king, though, rejected this petition and decided to go to war anyway. One of the big figures at this point is George Washington. He is in charge of the Continental Army, but found that despite being in charge, colonists weren't really prepared or disciplined enough to have that type of organization to fight the British. So whenever he took charge, his particular group were the ones that asked for ammunition and weapons because they would obviously be the first group to fight. And he even got 12 large cannons just for his group of men. When we declare independence, eventually through the Second Continental Congress, it wasn't a completely agreed upon idea. There are 3 different ideas that were happening in Congress, which is causing debate of the Declaration of Independence. The first one is how some thought that they shouldn't form a new nation at all. That's where you see the Loyalists step in. The second one say that because the war had already begun, they should be free. So that's the really big patriot people. And then some still thought that Britain's power would stop the rebellion completely. So they may not be on a particular side, though many of the times these were the loyalists as well. People like John Adams, Ben Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, as well as Robert Livingston and Roger Sherman, are the ones that held a committee to make the Declaration of Independence that they later showed to Britain, as well as be the main reason for the American Revolution. Jefferson wrote the Declaration himself after having that committee, and he got the ideas from a philosopher named John Locke. This philosopher is the one who thought up of the phrase life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So what exactly does the Declaration of Independence say? When you come to look at it, it actually comes down to 4 different parts. The preamble, which is an introduction to the states as well as the people who wish to reform this nation. They explain kind of in summary of what exactly the Declaration of Independence says. The second and third piece list the rights of the colonists, and they believe what beliefs they have or complaints they have against Britain. So it's a justification of why they want a new nation. And the last one proclaims the existence of the new nation. They say exactly what happens now. When we look to the American Revolution, there's quite a few different battles where not only does it happen in the different areas all throughout the colonies, but there are quite a few losses and gains. Many of these people, like you see that a majority of these happened in the northern colonies, in the New England colonies, though some of them later venture south. Everyone that helped the American Revolution to have this colonist win included soldiers, women, and African Americans. It wasn't just the soldiers, there was actually other groups. It wasn't just the patriots. George Washington himself organized over 20,000 troops and then asked for spies to also step in to figure out things with the British. A famous person for that happening is Nathan Hale, who dressed up as a school teacher to get information. Washington himself had them sign up, the soldiers or the spies, had them sign up for a service contract of around 3 years, a minimum of 3 years. They struggled to find commanders with experience or military training because, like said before, they weren't organized. Women also fought with this entire purpose through things like disguises or being a cook or water provider. And many also worked as nurses or spies for the Patriots. The African Americans also stepped in during this time because we needed soldiers, and some states actually allowed for the African Americans to fight, but not all of them. Rhode Island, though, on the other hand, had an all African American regiment by 1778. By the end of the war, every state except South Carolina enlisted African Americans to fight. Last, you can see that some of these people volunteered to be a patriot as a way to run away from slavery and gain money at the time of the war. Now, the Battle of Trenton and Princeton is very key to the American Revolution because this is how the Delaware River is crossed, and Washington takes out many of the British troops that were organized in the New England colonies. In the winter of 1776, British had a main location for their troops in New York, which is around Princeton, and then in New Jersey for the city of Trenton. Washington decided to take the British by surprise on Christmas Day of 76 by crossing the Delaware River in Pennsylvania and going into New Jersey. At night, around 2,400 troops crossed the Delaware River, and they attacked those troops, scattering them from the main area and making disorganization happen for the British troops. Originally, the British thought it would be a lot easier to win the American Revolution by capturing different areas and then taking control. First of all, they wanted to seize Albany in New York. Second, they wanted to gain control of the Hudson River, which was a main bay for trading and shipping. Last, they thought that they would cut off the northern colonies, the New England colonies, from the middle colonies. In September of 1776, before the capture of Albany, the British also thought that they would try and capture Philadelphia, which at the time was the home to the actual new Second Continental Congress. But the British never made it to Philadelphia, not because that they got beat by troops, but because of winter conditions that they weren't acclimated to. Next is the Battle of Saratoga. Two other generals try to take Albany, but are stopped by American troops. This person who could be key to this area is Benedict Arnold, who stopped the British troops in August of 1777 in Fort Stanwix. Second, while the British troops took over Fort Ticonderoga, they couldn't go any further because of lack of supplies. The group called the Green Mountain Boys also stopped them in Bennington, Vermont, and they retreated to Saratoga in New York. On October 17th of 1777, the Continental Army had Fort Saratoga, and the British troops blocked and surrounded, so they actually surrendered in that particular area. This made the three-part British plan for victory fail quite a bit. The gain overseas with their allies as the war continued included people who helped with the southern colonies and areas, such as France and Spain. France was the one who helped quite a bit, and they sent money, equipment, and troops to them. Spain didn't particularly form an alliance officially, but they also declared war against Britain, making it a lot harder for Britain to take care of both wars, and they fought in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Now, the winter of the Valley Forge in 1778, when the British actually gained control of Philadelphia, and while Washington set up camp in the Valley Forge through a really cold winter, both sides had a lack of food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. Snowstorms actually had damaged the road, so they couldn't really travel, and they slowed down supply deliveries. Eventually, the huts that were made to shelter these soldiers were having to be made from supplies that were taken from the countryside, so natural resources. Volunteers such as Washington's wife made clothes and cared for the sick. It was shipped in or it was made on site. Yorktown is actually a win for the colonists later on this battle. In 1781, Nathaniel Greene splits the Continental forces in two. He splits them in half. One group defeats the British in Cowpens, South Carolina. The other group joined Francis Marion, who fought in swamps of the South. Greene then meets with General Cornwallis in the Guilford Courthouse of Greensboro, North Carolina. Cornwallis gave up the campaign to take over the Carolinas, and even though Greene ended up retreating, they still won. In 1781, Cornwallis tries to take over Yorktown, but Washington comes down to defeat him himself. And the French ships headed off the group as well. They marched 200 miles in 15 days. Washington, Lafayette, and Rochambeau had over 14,000 troops, and the French fleet had 8,000 against the British, which is, you can see why they would give up. After attack, the siege lasted around 5 days before surrender and taking 8,000 prisoners as well as over 200 guns to use for their advantage. You can see in the picture how this whole entire fight actually organized. Last, you can see the many victories and losses between the two countries based upon this arrangement on the map. When it ends, we end with a Patriot victory like we talked about before. British had still held control of Savannah in Georgia, Charlestown, South Carolina, and New York. The king decided that there shouldn't be more because it was too costly to pursue, because not only had Spain declared war, but the colonists had as well. Plus, they had a lot of help. The Americans and the British sent delegates to Paris, France to sort out the treaty, not on American land. They actually sent people to go work with the British in another country. Ben Franklin, John Adams, and John Hay represented the United States here and made what's called the Treaty of Paris, which was signed on September 3rd of 1783. Britain then recognized the United States as an independent nation and gave America the fishing rights off the coast in nearby Canada, and that they would withdraw all of their troops. They also gave British merchants what they owed and returned property to the Loyalists. Make sure that you go through and highlight or fill in the blanks of all of this. And if you need to, go back and fill in the blanks as well.